got started raising butterflies about 6 years ago. And typically, if it's a good year, I'll raise somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 butterflies a year, from an egg to a butterfly. So my mission statement is to raise and release healthy butterflies, and that will all fit together as my presentation continues, okay? Anyway, so I'm going to start, and I'll tell you how the program will go. I have storyboards, which is what I started out with when I first started doing this. And then I got somebody to help me who was technically advanced, technologically, and I have a PowerPoint presentation with videos and the actual things happening, but can't do that out here. So what I'm going to do is go through the storyboards with the pictures in my presentation, then we'll move them just out of the way, and up here I basically have the creatures in all their stages, and I'll answer your questions, and I've got magnifying glasses so you can see these little things. So that's kind of how it's going to go. This all starts out with planting a butterfly garden. So I'm going to kind of fast forward to when the butterflies actually find your garden and start laying the eggs. And then we can talk about the plants and who likes what, okay? Your garden is going to need to have two things: a host plant, which is what the butterfly will lay her eggs on, and the nectar plants, which has the liquid, the food for all the butterflies. They're not too fussy. Now, nature is the one that decides how that butterfly knows that particular plant is where she needs to lay her egg. I still haven't figured that out. Okay, so we'll start here. I don't know if this is going to make any difference or not, but I'll point to what I'm talking about, okay? So it starts with her laying an egg. I have Monarch eggs in my container here, and it takes between 1 to 5 days for them to hatch. Why? Because I don't know when she laid them. But if I bring in an egg in 1 to 5 days, I should have a baby, okay? And I do. I have a baby who's probably about 24 to 48 hours old. You're going to need the magnifying glass for that, okay? So the butterfly will typically lay her egg on what they call the host plant. So a monarch will specifically lay her eggs only on a milkweed plant. The other butterfly that will do that also is a queen butterfly. There's male and female queens. Queen is the name of the butterfly, okay? And in the wild, monarch, you know, you've certainly read about the decline of the monarchs. Well, in the wild, 1 to 3% of them survive. Now, that's pretty small. On the other hand, a monarch can lay up to 500 eggs. So if every monarch had every egg of hers live, that wouldn't work either. And so nature has got it fixed so that that works. We're the ones that interfere with nature and get things all mixed up in the chain. So she will lay her egg on a host plant, and in 1 to 5 days, the baby will hatch. The first hatch, okay, I want you to get the right words, okay? When somebody doesn't use the right word for what the process is, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard. So remember, eggs hatch, okay? They will hatch, and the first thing that baby does is eat its shell. The reason being that's its first meal and it's protein, okay? I wanted to see what the egg looked like. I have a microscope. The egg has ridges on it. And what that little baby does inside, it is like watching a sonogram. When your kids are having babies and they watch the sonogram. This little creature, I was looking under the microscope, I saw it move inside the egg. Oh my gosh, I was up till 20 after 1 that night waiting and watching for this little creature. I had no idea what was going to happen. But they have two little, they look like a little claw. They're kind of tinted red. And since the egg is ridged on the inside and the outside, what this little creature does is take these mandibles and it will keep pulling on a ridge, pulling, 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 till it actually breaks the hole in the egg, and you can see that. Then it starts eating the egg. And it will, actually you wouldn't know that there was even anybody that hatched. That's so the predators hopefully don't see that a new baby and an easy meal has just hatched, okay? So they will come out, they'll eat their shell, and they're exhausted. So they will stay still, be quiet, until they kind of get their strength and their feet together. And they're white. The monarchs are white when they come out with a little black head. And I know when that egg is going to hatch because I can see the egg is like a milky white, but the top of it is black, and that's its little head. So I know that's going to probably, hopefully, be a baby by the time I get up in the morning, okay? So it will eat the egg, it will rest, and then it will start to eat that leaf, and its life cycle actually begins. When it's hatched, it's a little tiny white caterpillar with no markings on it. They have tiny little black hairs, and that's what I actually saw moving inside the egg. I just can't tell you what a thrill that was that night. I still, if I see that little black head and it's not too late, I may stay up and watch it hatch under the microscope, okay? So once it hatches, it comes out, it eats its egg. And they are eating and pooping machines. All they do is eat, sleep, and poop, just like a baby, okay? And so what it will do is eat and eat and eat. It grows and grows and grows. And then its skin gets too tight and it can't fit it in anymore. And it has what's called a face mask that covers the front of it. So what happens is it secretes an enzyme that is a liquid between the skin and the actual body that helps it slide out of that skin. So they shed their skin 5 times. And the different stages, they call them instars, I-N-S-T-A-R-S, okay? So when they're that tiny, they're a first instar, then a second instar, then a third instar. And then the 5th instar time is when it actually sheds its skin for the final time, and it's going to make its chrysalis. Chrysalis, not cocoon. Moths make cocoons. You'll be so much smarter if you just use the word chrysalis, okay? They don't spin a chrysalis. The moths will spin a chrysalis, okay? These guys on that 5th time shed their skin. The other word for that is molt. They will molt. Now, during their life cycle, when they're molting, the other thing they do is they will shed that skin, and it's wiggling out of that skin. They've got to get that face mask off. So I kind of liken it to an elephant with a trunk, because you see this little tiny caterpillar going like this on the paper towel or whatever to actually get that face mask off. I have some face masks, but you're going to need a magnifying glass to see it, okay? So at any rate, when they do shed their skin, they rest, because that's a pretty intensive thing that they do. He'll shed his skin, rest, and then turn around and again eat that skin. So no predators know that somebody has just molted. They're most delicate at that time, and it's also protein, okay? So they do that 5 times, and that 5th time is when they make their chrysalis. Typically, when they're going to molt and when they're going to make their chrysalis, they go away from their food source. So when I've had first times for everything I'm telling you. I thought I killed them. I didn't know what else I had, but I've learned by observing them what their little habits are. So they will go away from their food source and rest for about 24, sometimes 48 hours, and then I know they're getting ready to molt again when they haven't moved, okay? They kind of go into what they call a prayer stance, if you look at it. If he cooperates, I've got one swallowtail that's in that prayer stance. But they stay still, it's almost like they're kneeling, okay? All right, so now we've got them We've got all 5 stages of it, from the baby hatching from the egg, okay, to making its chrysalis. And the word when the butterfly comes out of its chrysalis, somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 days, it's called emerging, okay, emerge. Remember, the butterflies emerge and the eggs hatch, okay? Hopefully we can get that straight. All right. In 8 to 10 days, they will typically, and when they make that chrysalis, and I've got some chrysalises here, when they make that chrysalis, they are very, very vulnerable. They've shed their skin for the very last time. I have a picture here of that process, okay? When they're getting ready, they spin a silk. They have a gland that they spin a silk, 1 thread at a time. And I have some silks on black paper so you can see how fine that is. They lay this silk, and that's how that's basically how they travel and hold on to something, because they have 2 sets of legs. The front 3 legs are called prolegs, okay? And then the 4 back legs I call suction cups, because they're like little suction cups that they will hold on to a surface, okay? So they will go up and they'll spin this silk, and you can see it going back and forth and back and forth. And it concentrates that silk in a specific spot called a button. And you'll see that. I have examples of almost everything. They don't perform on demand. So this morning when I told them I was coming and this is what I need, but they didn't really listen to me, so, I brought what I have. Okay. They will concentrate this silk in a little white button. And then what they do, obviously, is rest. That's exhausting to create this silk. They will rest, and then they will find that button with their rear end. I've watched them. It took one 45 minutes to find that button, so he could attach his rear end with the 2 little claspers on his rear that they will stick. It's almost like Velcro, and stick those 2 little claspers on that white button, and then they're happy. So they will hang in a J, they call it, like for about 24, 48 hours, okay? And then what happens is that J will drop into a straight line, and their antennas, they have 2 front ones and 2 back ones. Queens have 3, 2 in the back, 2 in the middle, and 2 in the front. Just a little interesting. I have no queens today. They didn't want to come. Their antenna will get pinched. And the first time that happened, I saw this creature that was a jay. Now he's hanging straight. And now his antennas are all crimped. I've killed him. But he was just getting ready to make his chrysalis. So the next question is, well, where does this start? Again, many nights watching these creatures. Between those front antennas, their skin will split right down the back. You can see that skin split. And obviously it's that enzyme that they've secreted that helps that skin, by wiggling, pulling it down. And so they will do that and do that until they've got all the skin wiggled up to the top. And then I say they do their wiggle dance, because they don't want that skin anymore. They don't need it anymore. When they get to the top, there is a little black stem that pops right out of their body. It's in there. And that is definitely like Velcro. I have some pictures of, which I'll point out so you know. I have some pictures of the actual cremaster. That's the little black stem. So the cremaster will come out, and it will look and look and look and look and find that button, and it hooks on that button. And then the actual chrysalis will wiggle until it wiggles around that cremaster and discards that skin. Now, if they don't get the skin off, it's no big deal. They'll still be a good butterfly, whatever. I tend to wait until it's totally dry, and then I can just flick it off, not a problem. So that little creature is like, I would say jello that hasn't set. If it falls, which is usually a sign of a sick creature, because they're not meant to fall, they're really good at doing what they do. If it falls, it will go splat. It's like almost all liquid, but every piece of that butterfly is in that little creature when it discards its skin for the very last time. And you can actually see in before it, then after a little bit, the exterior will harden like a case. And that's what I've got in here, are the chrysalises of the monarchs. But before it makes that case and you don't get to see inside, you can actually see its proboscis, which is what its little tool is that it drinks the nectar, and its antennas and its eyes. And so if you look at the pictures, you'll actually see what I'm talking about. So it's going to stay in this chrysalis. That will harden. And then if you drop a chrysalis that's hardened, chances are it's going to be fine. Amazing how nature does take care of that, okay? Most of this stuff that I can tell you is because I've already done it myself. You know, it's trial and error. One really has to be creative on this because they have an agenda and they don't always do what you expect and what you've provided for, okay? So it will be in this chrysalis for about 8 to 10 days. If the weather is cold, it will take a little longer than 8 to 10 days on the monarchs. But typically, anybody except the swallowtails will be 8 to 10 days. Now the swallowtails, they have their own time frame. And they go into what's called diapause, which is almost like a bear hibernating. They will make their chrysalis, and the longest time I've had a chrysalis is just over 5 months. Up north, people put the chrysalises in their garage or their refrigerator, and they overwinter them. And then when the spring comes and the weather warms up, okay, that shouldn't go anywhere. Then they know to come out. Emerge, remember? Emerge, emerge. Okay, so chrysalises don't hatch, okay? They will emerge. Now, on the monarch chrysalis, I call them my little Fabergé eggs because they had these little tiny gold dots at the bottom, and they had this little rim of gold dots, and even the experts don't know why, what they're for, or however. So I have some chrysalises of the monarchs, and you will see the gold. I mean, they're just beautiful. Okay, so when this chrysalis butterfly is getting ready to emerge, that exterior covering becomes transparent, and you can actually see the wings and the veins and all the creature inside. You know it's going to emerge within, well, never as quick as I'm hoping for or that I have time to watch, okay? But anyway, that will split, and you'll see the butterfly is head down. So what it does is it will split that case, the head comes out, the legs push it out like a little, you know what it's like? The pilots, when they get in the top of the airplane, the hatch that comes out, well, that's exactly what it looks like. They're coming out of the hatch like that. And they will come out, and then they come out, they're in that tiny chrysalis, the whole butterfly, but when it comes out, its abdomen is huge. Its wings are tiny. So this little creature has to hang on to that chrysalis and pump that abdomen fluid in its wings, and that's how they expand when it actually becomes a butterfly. Now that process takes about, half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour. But then they are very, very delicate. Think about wet tissue. If you tried to pick up or do anything with the wet tissue, that's about what they're like when they come out. So they have to hang on this chrysalis or on a net cage for anywhere between 2 to 4 hours. to let their wings harden. They don't get really hard, but I mean, then it's like a regular butterfly, okay? If they fall, if they, for whatever reason, bump up against something and their wings get bent, you can't fix a bent wing. And depending on the condition, it may never fly. People do something called a wing transplant. I personally have never done that. It's kind of like wallpaper. You put the butterfly down, you put the wing down on top of it, cut down the middle, and then you have a perfect match if you've ever hung wallpaper, which I've done, okay? But I'm not about to do a wing transplant, okay? So that little butterfly, it comes out, number one, it's got to hang on, okay? Number two, it has to zip its proboscis. Now the proboscis is 2 pieces, and what it has to do, they zip because it has little teeth that you really can't see unless under a microscope. But what it does, it comes out in 2 pieces, and it will roll and unroll that proboscis until those pieces are zipped together. And that forms a little tube, and that's how the butterfly nectars. It will stick that proboscis down into a flower and suck up the flower. Now they're lazy. They really like flowers where they don't have to walk very far to get nectar from the next little thing. That's why they like things like pentas, lantana, that they can just stay in one spot, move over to the next little tiny flower head and stick that, but they do go all over. Okay, so now we've got them hanging out. And how do they hang on? They hang on by tarsal claws, and I've got some enlarged pictures of those. They're like little prongs, and they've got little stickers on them. So it will hang on to that chrysalis with the tarsal claws, or onto the net, or whatever. And it's very, what do I want to say? It's not exciting, it's very stressful to watch them come out and just hope they don't fall. Now I'll tell you one thing, one reason they do fall, which is when I started doing this, if the butterfly is not healthy, it has a hard time coming out of the chrysalis, and it has a hard time hanging on to let its wings pump. And the reason for that is a nasty parasite called OE, Ophriocistis electrocera, and that's why we call it OE. Much easier to say OE. Okay. These are spores, microscopic spores, that when a female butterfly has it, it's like glitter. Think about very fine glitter. When she has the spores, they're on her abdomen. So when she's flying around, these spores are dropping on the leaves. When she's mating, they're transferring to the male, or vice versa. If he's got the spores and he mates with her, he may transfer those spores to her, okay? So then when she goes and lays her egg, this glitter, or the spores, get on the leaf and get on the egg. What does the baby do when it hatches? First thing it does, eat its shell. And it ingests those spores, and the cycle starts all over again. So when I first started this, I didn't really know and understand what was going on. They weren't able to hold on to their chrysalis. Their wings were deformed. They couldn't fly. It was just tragic. I've done the research, okay, University of Florida, and I've got papers here with 3 great websites of butterflies, specifically monarchs. Holly does specifically monarchs, and then another one. And then the University of Florida is a great source of information as well. I read all about these spores. Now, 95% of our butterflies have OE. 99% of Fort Lauderdale and Miami butterflies have OE. It's typical to Florida. The reason being, or so the experts say, is that we don't have a season that the milkweed dies and the spores die. Our butterflies are here year-round. So what can we, who are absolutely crazy enthusiasts and passionate about saving the monarchs, is we bleach the eggs and bleach every leaf that my monarchs eat. The OE is specific to the milkweed butterflies. So swallowtails don't get OE, they get other things, but you know, that's part of nature. And actually how I got into this in the very first place was a 1974 issue of National Geographic that had the monarch butterflies on the cover, and they talked about the Michoacan forests in Mexico with the oyamel trees, fir trees, that the butterflies would migrate every year to, okay? Well, now the logging, okay, and the loss of habitat has affected Mexico. The loss of our habitat and their migration route has devastated their presence here. But I didn't do anything until about 6 years ago, so that kind of saddened my mind. That lady is still alive. I went back and researched on National Geographic and read about her. She lives in Canada, she is still alive, and she actually made the impact on my life that now I'm hopefully impacting your lives on trying to save our monarchs, okay? So now we've got them healthy, because I bleached. I'll come back to that. I bleached them. They get bleached leaves, fed. They've made their chrysalis. They came out and found their little spot with their cremaster. They've hung 24, they're ready to go, okay? Well, sometimes I have males and sometimes I have females. And on the monarchs, it's easy to tell the difference. The females have much thicker veins than the males. But the real telltale thing is the males have 2 black spots on the bottom of their lower wing called pheromones. Those are the things that attract the ladies to him, okay? So when they have the black pheromone spots, I know it's a male. And if they don't, I know it's a girl. And sometimes when I'm out releasing, I release them from my cages, okay? When I release them and it's a female, how these males know it, I just don't know. But they will come zipping through the backyard and take her off. And it's like, give her a break. Really. And I watched them one time thinking they were fighting, and they were actually mating. So, but you can't always do that because the monarchs are very territorial and they are very aggressive, and the males do fight. I've separated them. I don't separate them if they're mating because that's God's plan. So anyway, but these guys, I mean, I don't know where they come from, and they just will take her off. Typically they'll take her up into a tree, and that can go on for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, depending on, now I don't watch them 2 to 4 hours, but that's what the experts say. So anyway, so now we've got them out. We know a boy from a girl. We've got them mated, and they live happily ever after for 2 to 6 weeks. That's about how long they live. Okay. Now, when I talked about the OE, that's one thing. The next thing that I preach about is what can we do? You may not want to do it to the extent that I do it, because the last thing I do before I go to bed is go out and make sure everybody's got enough food to get through the night, because they eat all night. I mean, they just eat all the time. And then when I get up in the morning, I have to look and see who gets breakfast first, them or me. And many times they win, but you know, that's part of the game. So the other thing that you can do, even if you don't want to do it to the extent that I do it, is plant your butterfly garden, which is what all these gorgeous things are. But just as important as planting the garden is not to use pesticide. And last night they sprayed for mosquitoes where I live, and they can't just indiscriminately. I've talked to the owner of the chemical that they use, the maker of the chemical that they use. It's a safety thing because of Zika and dengue fever and all that stuff. It's a health issue, so they have to spray. And they have mosquito traps that they can fog for mosquitoes when there's a certain count in these traps. So I'm on the list that they will call me And I know they're going to fog tonight. I live in an HOA where everything is taken care of. I feel like Don Quixote battling the windmills because nobody's allowed in my yard with pesticide or herbicide or fertilizer or anything. I will go out along with my secret weapon, Alan, wherever he is. And we cover the plants. I can't cover them all, but I have drop cloths and plastics, and some I bring into my screen porch so that I have safe, covered up, safe milkweed. They won't get OE because there's no butterflies in there to lay eggs, okay? But I cover everything up with a sheet. We live on a golf course and there's a cart path behind our house quite a ways, but the golfers all know my garden. And one night I was out there, well, you know, late afternoon, early evening, covering up, and he said, obviously from New York or New Jersey, he said, "Are we expecting a freeze tonight?" I said, "No." So, and I have anything that I think will cover and protect them. And then I've taken little plant markers that are in the ground so I know what plant I've covered so that it's safe when I have to go out and get the leaves to bring in. Because this stuff has a very long half-life and you can't wash it off, you know, and there's all kinds of things, which I'll touch on another thing. Many times people will say, well, how about organic neem oil? You know, that's not a chemical. Organic only means it's not a chemical. It's still designed to kill. Neem oil. So if you spray with neem oil, your caterpillars are going to they're going to die. And the typical sign of an issue is that they vomit green. And on a white paper towel, it's really sad to get up in the morning the first time that happened, and the paper towels are all green and my caterpillars are all dead. And that is pesticide. So everybody in the whole community knows, oh, that's the butterfly lady, don't touch her yard, don't touch her yard. And I have signs that, you know, do not spray, but then they always have a new crew who doesn't know any better, you know, whatever. So that's why I feel like Don Quixote. Anyway, here, so the green vomit here is typical and they will die. So here's my little PS plug for people like Busy Bee. They don't spray their milkweed. When you go to Lowe's and you go, I shouldn't say the right word, when you go to the big box stores and you see beautiful milkweed, you can almost guarantee that it is sprayed. If you go and you see caterpillars on there, that doesn't necessarily mean it's safe. They may not have died. They may not, it takes a while, okay? So just because there's if you go and you see aphids, buy the plant because that means it's not sprayed. So the biggest thing you can do as keepers of our environment and our beautiful creatures is to not spray. I mean, do I have issues? Yeah, I have ants. And I'm very careful. Ants are predators of the eggs. I mean, they're, you know, everybody in the food chain has a purpose, and the ants do too. So I will spot treat. One of the things I use is taro because they take that bait back to the nest so I don't have to spray. I'm very careful where I do it. I wear nitrile gloves and I can squish the bugs. The orange and black bugs are called milkweed bugs and they're all over your plants. I take a bucket of soapy water with some Dawn in it and tap them into the bucket and that kills them, okay? And I love a bucket full of milkweed plants. However, other creatures need to eat these bugs, the milkweed bugs. So we never want to do something that will wipe out an entire segment of that population of the food chain. I can guarantee you, even if you try, you won't be able to do it, okay? I have wasp traps in my yard because the wasps are predators of the babies. And once you see a wasp go after a caterpillar, it really does change what you think. So it's a glass jar with a hole in the bottom. I fill it with cheap Walmart apple juice. They're not fussy, the wasps. And they go into the bottom and they don't know how to get out. I don't want to kill all the wasps. They're pollinators. They have a place in the food chain. So I don't want you to think I'm out to eliminate anybody. We just have to do what we can do to make things better for them, okay? So these are, down here on the bottom are the spores, and that's a picture under the microscope. You can't see the spores, okay? And the other little thing is, so many of people that try to do this and want to do this, and they'll say, my butterfly, I don't bleach, but my butterflies are perfect. Their wings are, the chances are they don't. Now, I've just recently read an article on one of the gurus talking about this OE, and typically I will look under the microscope by taping the butterfly's abdomen, just putting the sticky tape on it, and then I take that tape, fold it in half, and look at it under the microscope, and I can see if it's got the OE spores. Sometimes it's a light case, and sometimes it's very heavy. And the hardest part of what I do is euthanizing these butterflies. Sometimes they look perfect, absolutely perfect, and they came out of their chrysalis fine. And I look under the microscope, and it is a heavy infestation. Not heavy enough to affect their wings or their look, so you think it's fine. And I think, can I really release this butterfly out into the wild to infect any ones that don't have it? So that's a personal decision. It's really tough. You have to be comfortable with what you do. But my yard, when it's up in full production, my butterflies, I've done this. I've taken some of the butterflies, or I've brought a caterpillar in that I didn't bleach the egg, okay? And that's asking for trouble. But my garden has become clean, and probably 3 or 4 out of 5, if I bring in a caterpillar and test the butterfly, it doesn't have OE. I mean, I was absolutely shocked at what that had transpired over time, okay? But the other key thing that you can do with milkweed is make sure you cut it back. And that will give the chance for new growth to come out that doesn't have OE yet, okay? Cut it back 2 or 3 times a year, 4 times a year. I have milkweed different places throughout my yard, because if you put it in one place, it's like a buffet. And the wasps go, oh, just go right over there and you can get everything you need, okay? So what I do is I will cut back this patch of milkweed, cut it back, let it come back. And then when that's coming, I'll cut back this patch. So it's an ongoing process, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But at any rate, it's very rewarding when these little creatures come out. And I will tell you a story that's really very touching. I've always gone outside, released them like that. And if people are around or with their kids, they'll come, Julie, got any butterflies to release, whatever. But my accountant passed away at a fairly young age. And I went to visit her mom and her dad. And they didn't know I was doing butterflies, and I told Ellie about the butterflies, and she said, oh, Julie, the next time you release one, will you release one in Karen's name? I said, sure. Okay. So don't you know, the next one that I released was a male. Of course I wasn't going to name it Karen. So I had to wait for a female to come out, and she did. And I took her out in the yard like I've released every other butterfly. But I did that. Said a little prayer. This is Karen. You go off and bring me back some babies. This butterfly flew all the way around my yard and came back and landed on my shoulder. I have never, in 1,000 butterflies a year, ever had something like that happen before or since. I mean, so there's lots of folklore that goes with the butterflies, that it's someone's touching you, someone's visiting you. I mean, they're magical. That's why the name of what I do is called The Magical World of Butterflies, because it really is magical. And when you go with a microscope, it becomes even more magical because you see things that you can't see in real life. Okay, so that covers that one. This happens to be a queen who's got 3 antennas. And the kids always say, well, what's all that black stuff in there? Because I do this at the schools. It's poop. That's all they do is poop. And I clean their cages on an average of 3 to 4 times a day, because you've got to keep sanitary conditions, okay? So I bleach the eggs, I bleach the leaves, and I bleach all my containers. Everybody in the neighborhood drops off salad containers. I mean, I look at what I'm doing to protect the environment and keep the plastic out of the environment, okay? Anyway, I bleach all the containers so everybody is clean. You've got to have clean conditions. Okay, so if we move over to this one, this is actually the life cycle of the monarch, okay? And I'm going to move these away so you can go look at them, but I want you to be able to see what creatures and live things I have. So, okay, there's the tarsal claw. Again, this is all done with the microscope, okay? The zebra longwing, the little black and yellow one, that is our state butterfly, okay? And I saw on the handouts that Busy Bee did about the atalas, and I actually was fortunate enough to go to a class where the instructor took us and showed us a colony of atalas. And that was really just exciting, only because we thought they were extinct, no more. And well, I've planted kunti in my yard, but you know, I'll be pushing daisies before I have atalas, because they typically like the east, and I'm actually west even of I-95. So if I have an atala, you probably will hear me yell. Anyway, okay. Let me see. Here is a good example of a chrysalis that is transparent, and this is in a let's see. This is a swallowtail, and you can actually see all the markings on their wings. It's amazing how that changes. Here is the cremaster. This is an up close one. It looks just like the fuzzy end of the Velcro. And then the top of the cremaster is like the little loops. So when it finds that, it's, you know, it's amazing. It'll just stay that way. Okay, so here's a little one creature hanging on. This is a Polynomous swallowtail. And I practiced a long time saying Polynomous before I called the University of Illinois to get some information, because I wanted to pronounce it correctly, right? Polynomous swallowtail. And he was so cute. He said, Julie, it's Polynomous. I said, you have no idea how long it took me to get Polynomous. All right, so anyway, these guys are really cute. I call them my little Tootsie Rolls. And nobody came today. I told them we'd have a good crowd. They'd meet a lot of people. They had no interest in coming. So you'll have to look at the picture, but they do look like Tootsie Rolls. And the other thing is that, oh, here's a good one of him rolling his proboscis out, okay? Where was I going with that? Okay, senior moment, it'll come back. Anyway, so I'm going to move the storyboards out so you can see them, and I'm going to go behind the tables, and my secret weapon, Alan, my husband, knows just about as much as I do. He just doesn't stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning to watch a baby hat. Okay, but he knows about it. He knows about it, so he can answer questions too. And I really want you to see what I have, because you won't see that in your yards. You'll see the butterflies flying, you'll see the caterpillars, but you won't. I mean, the thrill of seeing this thing up close, and use the magnifying glass. The kids have a hard time with the magnifying glasses, but we won't, okay? And use it so you can actually see what's going on. Now, does anybody have questions?